Part of the answer, says Nietzsche, is biological. All of organic nature is divided into two broad species types: those who are by nature herd animals and those who are by nature loners. Some animals are naturally prey and others are predators. Some are born to be sheep, field mice, or cows, while other animals are born wolves, hawks, or lions. Psychologically and physically, this line runs through the human species as well. Some of us are born fearful and inclined to join the herd, while others of us are born fearless and inclined to seek great lonely heights. Some of us are born sedentary and more sluggish, while others are born crackling with purpose and craving adventure. Some of us, to use Nietzsche's language, are born slaves, and others are born to be masters. And which type you are, well, there's very little you can do about it. There's a brute biological fact here, Nietzsche believes. All of us are the product of a long evolutionary line, and our traits are bred into us evolutionarily. Just as a sheep cannot help but be sheepish, and a hawk cannot help but be hawkish, each of us inherits from our parents and from their parents before them a long line of inbuilt traits. It cannot be effaced from a man's soul what his ancestors have preferably and most constantly done. The master types live by strength, creativity, independence, assertiveness, and related traits. They respect power, courage, boldness, risk-taking, even recklessness. It's natural for them to follow their own path no matter what, to rebel against social pressure and conformity. The slave types live in conformity. They tend to passivity, dependence, meekness. It is natural for them to stick together for a sense of security, just as herd animals do. Now, says Nietzsche, let's talk about morality, about good and bad, right and wrong. For thousands of years, we've been taught that morality is a matter of religious commandments set in stone thousands of years ago. Not so, says Nietzsche. What we take to be moral depends on our biological natures, and different biological natures dictate different moral codes. Think of it this way. If you're a sheep, then what will seem good to you as a sheep? Well, being able to graze peacefully, sticking close together with others just like you, being part of the herd and not straying off. And what will seem bad to you? Well, wolves will seem bad, and anything wolf-like, predatory, or aggressive. But what if you're a wolf? Then strength, viciousness, and contempt for sheep will no doubt feel natural to you and good. There is nothing that the wolves and the sheep can agree upon morally. Their natures are different, as are their needs and their goals, as is what feels good to them. Of course, it would be good for the sheep if they could convince the wolves to be more sheep-like, but no self-respecting wolf is going to fall for that. That lambs dislike great birds of prey does not seem strange, only it gives no grounds for reproaching these birds of prey for bearing off little lambs. And if the lambs say among themselves, "These birds of prey are evil, and whoever is least like a bird of prey, but rather its opposite, a lamb, would he not be good?" There is no reason to find fault with this institution of an ideal, except perhaps that the birds of prey might view it a little ironically and say, "Oh, we don't dislike them at all, these good little lambs. We even love them. Nothing is more tasty than a tender lamb." The same point holds for humans. The divide between the strong and the weak, the assertive and the timid, runs right through the human species. So, says Nietzsche, the key question to ask about morality is not, is such and such a moral code universally and intrinsically good? Rather, the key question is, to what kind of person does such a moral code seem good? One's moral code is a decisive witness to who he is, to the innermost drives of his nature. Moral judgments, Nietzsche says, are symptoms and sign languages which betray the process of physiological prosperity or failure. So, one's moral code is a function of one's psychological makeup, and one's psychological makeup is a function of one's underlying biological makeup. The biological language and examples in the above quotations show that biology is central to Nietzsche's thinking about morality. Nietzsche was a precocious 15 years old when Charles Darwin's book On the Origin of Species was published in 1859. Of course, evolutionary ideas had been in the air a long time before Darwin, and much of the intellectual world was moving away from thinking about reality in terms of timeless, unchanging absolutes, and more toward thinking of reality in terms of process and change. And this applies to morality too. Moral codes, Nietzsche is suggesting, are part of a biological type's survival strategy. And the more you look at the history of morality evolutionarily and biologically, the more you are struck by the diversity of circumstances and how beliefs about moral codes have varied dramatically across time. And this is our key problem culturally, Nietzsche believes. The evidence shows that we used to prize excellence, strength, and power, and to look down upon the weak, the lowly, and the humble. Now, it's the humble, the common man, and the kindly neighbor who are the good guys, while the strong, the powerful, the excellent, the proud are evil. Think of it this way. Suppose I gave you the following list of traits and urged them upon you positively. It is good to be proud of yourself, to have a healthy sense of self-esteem. Wealth is good, for it gives you the power to live as you wish. Be ambitious and bold, and seek your highest dream. Don't take any garbage from people. Make it clear that you will take vengeance and exact justice against those who mess with you. Seek to improve your life and devote yourself only to those things that will profit you. Don't waste your time or resources. Seek great challenges, great pleasures, including sensual pleasures of the body, and go your own independent way in life, embracing whatever risks you must take in order to develop a full and realized sense of yourself as an individual. And when you have accomplished something great, admire yourself for what you have done and indulge yourself in the rewards that greatness deserves. Now consider the elements of this list together in a package. Does that list resonate with you? Do you think that if people lived according to this list of traits, that they would lead fuller, more active lives, and that they and the human species would reach its highest potential? Now consider a different set of traits, and let me urge this list upon you positively too. One should be humble, for pride goeth before the fall. The meek shall inherit the earth, and blessed are the poor. As for wealth and the rich, it shall be easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. Instead of seeking profit, one should sacrifice and give to charity. Be patient and forgiving. Turn the other cheek. Be aware of one's weaknesses and sins, and be ashamed and self-deprecating as a result of that. Practice self-restraint, particularly with respect to your lower, impure, and often disgusting physical desires. Play it safe. Think of other people's needs first, and don't rock the boat. Realize that we're all dependent upon one another. Obey your parents and your preacher and the politicians. Does the list on the right resonate with you? Do you think that if more people lived that way, they would live better lives and they and the human species would realize its highest potential? Nietzsche is crystal clear about the list on the right. That list is dangerous to human potential. It is a symptom of weakness, even of sickness and unhealthiness. It undermines the human potential for greatness, and it is, tragically, the dominant morality of our time. In our time, all of the traits that ennoble man are condemned, and all of the traits that weaken man are praised. Morality has become, as Nietzsche puts it paradoxically, a bad thing. Morality has become immoral. Precisely morality would be to blame if the highest power and splendor actually possible to the type man was never in fact attained, so that precisely morality was the danger of dangers. Accordingly, Nietzsche concludes, we need a critique of moral values. The value of these values themselves must first be called in question, and for that there is needed a knowledge of the conditions and circumstances in which they grew, under which they evolved and changed.